welcome to the Unstuck and Happy podcast. We all get stuck, but how long you stay there is up to you. I'm your host, John Polish, founder of the Unstuck Happiness Conference. And this is the show where we interview people who've overcome tremendous adversity and have emerged as leaders. So if you need a little inspiration and hope in your day, get ready, because here comes another great Unstuck story. So I am excited about today's guest. Not only is she a tremendous influencer, but also just one of the nicest people that I know. So hello, Holly Duckworth.
Thanks for inviting me to be on your show. It's just so special to get this time with you and to share my story in the hope that it inspires and maybe connects a few people to a way they can transform their life too.
Awesome. So as an influencer, Holly basically owns the space when it comes to the word mindset. Or mindfulness, I should say, right?
Mindfulness, yeah.
Mindfulness. And so we had a conversation a while ago, and I'd like to have it again on air with you. When I first heard the term mindfulness, it sounded to me like kind of a woo-woo term, for lack of a better phrase. And you were probably the first person that really explained it to me in a way that made sense. So tell us, what does mindfulness mean to you?
Well, thank you for that question and this opportunity to share. You know, mindfulness often is a little bit of a misunderstood buzzword, and it gets so easily filed into meditation. But mindfulness in 2020 has really undergone a transformation. I like to say it's new thoughts on ancient wisdom, that mindfulness for many people comes out of a Buddhist tradition, but it's been secularized. And I actually say I teach applied mindfulness for businesses and executives worldwide. Mindfulness is the practice of being present in the moment with non-judgment. That's the most commonly known definition now by Jon Kabat-Zinn, who was the founder of the Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Institute.
Okay, very cool. So I believe that we often teach what we need. So where does that come from? What circumstances in your life made you think that mindfulness was the road you needed to take?
How fun is that? You are so right on. We teach what we most need to know. I've had a beautiful, amazing life journey. At this time, I'm really recognizing that a lot of my stuck stories have become my greatest gifts. And so teaching mindfulness actually came out of my divorce in 2010. I was seeking new insights, new inspiration. I didn't grow up in a religious or spiritual family, but I had this little, still small voice within me that was saying there's more life out there. And I stumbled upon an organization called Centers for Spiritual Living, and started taking a lot of self-help and personal development courses right after my divorce in 2010. And they really led me to a journey of going within. And that ultimately, for me, became a spiritual practice that became a mindfulness practice that's allowed me to now coach, speak, teach, and found the Mindful Leadership Council at the C-Suite Network. So, sometimes those darkest days are the ones that keep us back on path. So mindfulness for me comes out of my busy days as a meeting professional, my crazy days as an association executive, and really wanting to find a sense of inner calm in life's chaotic moments.
So if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about what those dark days looked like for you?
Oh, well, pick a chapter, John. I was so excited to meet you a few years back and hear where your passion lied, because I think this topic is one we want to pick up the carpet and put the carpet back over, or we want to put it in the closet. Oh, I never have a bad day. And that's why I was so honored to be asked to be on one of your early episodes, because I think the more we can lift up the carpet and open those closet doors and utilize those experiences to teach one another, the more we realize that's the gold in life. I've been married, I've been divorced, I've moved across the country and had a man leave me on the fifth day. I've won some of the greatest awards in the National Speakers Association and been recognized by the meetings industry. And all those things are amazing. But underneath that, that's that current of, learning and learning and learning and learning how to be in relationship with myself, with my former husband, how to be in relationship with business partners. I think this is a perfect time of life for, whether we wanted to or not, this pandemic experience is kind of the control alt delete, that blue sky of opportunity. So for me, when I got divorced, it was not the life I thought I'd have. It was the life I chose. We just, my husband was going north and I was going south. And because I loved him, I wanted him to have his life and me to have mine as well. But it was a stuck moment. Sometimes you don't think you're going to be a divorced person. But I use those practices of reaching out to friends and journaling and visioning and all these things that I now call mindfulness to allow me to bless that path and start a new path. There's one example.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because one of the things that I teach is that there are basically 5 areas of our lives that we have expectations in: people, responsibilities, activities, money, environment, which I teach that on other shows. But when I got married, my second marriage, I actually proposed to her by doing a speech about relationships, and I had her filming it and told her it was a demo for a conference. And I talked about how your life is going to get better in all of those areas in the right relationship. And sure enough, mine got worse in all those areas, like, quickly. And one of the reasons it got worse is because I stopped doing a lot of the things I was doing prior. And it's interesting that, something like a divorce can completely change. We think, okay, I'm going to fix this one problem, but we don't realize that changing that one thing changes everything. And so for me, recently going through another divorce, I found myself like completely alone again, going, I have to rebuild. I have to look at every area of my life that is now changed and completely rebuild. And I can see how someone can easily get stuck there, and how especially something like a divorce, because you start to look for a place to put the blame. And there's always another person you can put the blame on if you want to, or you can choose to rebuild all those areas of your life.
And I think the magic in a life reboot, whether it's a career reboot, a relationship reboot, a personal choice, is this opportunity to get unstuck within our own, I say, thoughts, beliefs, and actions. What you think about, you bring about. I love you talked about that word expectation. And there's society's expectations on us, our expectations of ourselves. And then I like to use the word expectancy, that we also kind of get to plant seeds now, mindfulness in this now moment, expecting new good things in our life. And I know when you were moving through this relationship transition you went through, you and I talked about, how nobody wants to be in the stuck place, but yet if we can see a light down the tunnel, we can sometimes move through these dark days with that hope and that expectancy of something better and greater coming. And that's how I moved through my divorce. It's how I moved through this life change endeavor. But it's one little expectancy of something better every single day. And I had to set my own becomingness that I was going to become that happier person again.
Yeah, that's actually what I found is becoming the theme of this whole podcast, is that hope is future oriented, and it's having something to look forward to rather than looking back on a lot of times. And so I think you absolutely right there. So how did that mindfulness practice of yours help to develop that hope for you? How did you get that vision for what you've become today?
Well, I'm a big acronym person. So for me, hope is happiness opening to positive energy. Happiness opening to positive energy. That we just it's just sometimes it's just a little bit at a time, and some days it's a big. The opening is big, and some days the opening is small. But it's holding on to that little thing, like in today's life, it might be just something as silly as, gosh, I have a choice. It's going to be another Monday in quarantine, or we called it Movie Monday. Last Monday, all day, it was Movie Monday. And we set the expectancy that if we worked hard during the day, we were going to have movie night that night. That I think sometimes being unstuck in a big thing is about finding a little thing to find hope in.
Right. That's even if it's something to look forward to, even if it's movie night Monday.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I use that as kind of a silly example, but in this, mindfulness is the practice of being present in this moment. I got to be willing to feel my feelings. And, my divorce was hard. Moving to Colorado was hard. So there's been days starting my business have been hard, but I've invited little things along the way, little goals or little fun things, little friendships. That chat you and I had many months ago or many years ago now, that little lunch, like finding those little seeds and those people that can give you opportunities to celebrate.
Absolutely. And so you actually have turned this into a serious practice in which you not only practice mindfulness every day, but you have a daily podcast on it.
I'm having a lot of fun right now. The show's called The Everyday Mindfulness Show, everydaymindfulnessshow.com. It's much like a traditional podcast in that it started with just, one show. We released them on Mindful Monday. That was almost 2 years ago now. But I couldn't have a show called Everyday Mindfulness and not have a tool I could offer every day. So I wrote Everyday Mindfulness from Chaos to Calm in a Crazy World in 2018 when I thought the world was crazy then. And this is just a daily inspirational. It's got a quote and a little story. And for the month of April, it's also got affirmations. So when all of this life transformed for all of us in the world, I got a little energy message, mindful message for me that I should offer the show live every day. So I do a live version on Facebook and YouTube every day. And your listeners can certainly see it if they like. It's on everydaymindfulnessshow.com. But we just share, like today's message was, I am flowing. And I think that's a key part of getting unstuck is find little places in your life that you can get energy flowing. I was talking to somebody, a coaching client earlier this week, and we were given a little tough love. And I may have told you this before. One of my unstuck experience is I actually let myself be stuck. But wait, I call it 24 hours on the floor, which means I go get my box of Kleenex and my most private dark place of the house, which happens to be my bathroom. And I say, okay, for 24 hours, I can be stuck. I can cry, I can scream, I can laugh, I can journal, I can do whatever for 24 hours. That's my be stuck moment. But then, 24 hours and 1 minute, you got to put on your big girl panties or your, big boy britches and get moving, get flowing again. And, it's not always easy, but sometimes, today's affirmation was, I am flowing. You know what? I'm going to flow and I'm going to have a drink of water. I'm going to flow and go for a short walk. I'm going to flow and jump in the shower and feel the water fully present. So, those are some of the fun things I do when I get stuck.
I love that. And I do remember talking about that because it came out of I do something similar in that scheduling your pain moment. If I'm feeling a little bit of anxiety, or sometimes when I'm just been on a long streak of things that are good, I will put it on my calendar to go sit in a park somewhere and just spend some time with the thoughts of all, the different adversities that I faced. Because I do think we need to stay connected to those things at times, but we don't want to carry them around with us. So what I love about what you're doing, and similar to the scheduling pain thing, is that we've set boundaries and said, this is how I am going to acknowledge this in my life, because it doesn't just go away. We can't just ignore it. But at the same time, this is exactly how I'm going to let it affect me. And for me, when I leave that park, I leave the negative energy behind. For you, you gave yourself 24 hours. At the end of that time, boom, you're done with it. And so people think we're crazy for doing things like this and saying, yeah, I'm going to allow this to happen. But by setting the boundaries of it, it doesn't spill over into your everyday life.
I like to call them light-filled boundaries, because you also know that, I'm sure you've had this experience, that sometimes these stuck moments are like an onion, and that you peel back a layer and then you peel back another layer and another layer and another layer. I've been divorced now for 10 years, and yet there's still moments that some sadness thing or some experience will show up and break my heart open again. And so giving yourself that state of grace I have a new one, John, you probably haven't heard. I call it feel it, heal it, deal it. We gotta feel the stuckness and whatever words that we attribute to that, to choose to heal it and then deal with it. Like, we got to go through all of that mindfully and graciously. And some of us move through it really quickly on some things and slow on others, but all of it is in that state of flowing your life forward.
Yeah. And exactly. Because I go I know it's not done and over with. I can always go back. I go back several times. And, but I also make that choice not to carry it around with me throughout the day. And of course it creeps back in. And when it does, it's time to go pay some attention, deal with it again.
Yeah.
But by not ever acknowledging it, I see too many times, and I did it for most of my life, not acknowledging that any of the things that were going wrong, and you just drag it along with you, and it starts to affect you in ways that you didn't want and you didn't even expect. So I like that.
Well, that's why I was so excited about your conferences and about your podcast is we gotta take the little flashlight and shine it in that stuck place in our heart, or, you know, that stuck experience that we're having, and building a community around that where we can just be really real in those conversations is really special.
Yeah. At my Moving Beyond retreat, everybody had little boxes, and we wrote out anything that we wanted to deal with in our life and put it in the box. And then at one point, we're like, okay, now it's time. We have to open the box and actually deal with what's in there. And so I'm still to this day getting messages from attendees going, you know, I'm dealing with my box. Especially during this quarantine time, like, this has been a great time for me to clean out my boxes. And it's a nice analogy because I'll actually demonstrate boxes on stage and drag them with me. I'm like, okay, I got to eventually open them and empty them because it's getting a little too heavy to drag around forever. And so, yeah, it's just that paying respect to the things that are affecting us, because they are, you know. And I'm watching during this quarantine time, some of the people that are the most traumatized by it, you know, I feel like they're still carrying around things from long before the quarantine ever happened. And this is causing us to spend time with ourselves and deal with some of those issues. It's not always fun to open those boxes and deal with what's inside.
One of the little mindfulness practices I'd offer up for your listeners, I call it ABC. You know, like when you open your box, you know, it's, you know, affirm that good. Like in all of these things we've put in our boxes, there's something good, or we wouldn't have had the experience. You know, affirm the good, breathe. You know, like right now we just. And then just keep centering, because that's going to give us the foundation for our next step forward.
That's actually one of the things that we do with it once we open it is figure out what the lesson is, or the purpose or meaning, or what good has come out of it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Good, yeah.
So with all that, how has your life changed since you've become this mindfulness expert?
Oh my gosh, everything about my life is always changing. I think I even told you this. I joke that my memoir is going to be called Trip, Fall, and Pick Yourself Up. Because, you know, that's, again, the moments we don't always talk about. You know, you trip, you get stuck, you fall, you pick yourself up. I mean, my business is flourishing. I made a decision to kind of pivot a little bit at the end of 2019. So speaking and really authorship was my number one business model up and through 2019. I've had my company now for 10 years. Oh my gosh. And now I'm really stepping into leading this Mindful Leadership Council with the C-Suite Network, and, you know, growing my thought leadership there, and really bringing all of the scientists, researchers, and practitioners of mindfulness together to create a mindfulness industry. So that's changed. I'm in a beautiful new relationship. We just bought a house in January, and, you know, I have 2 home-based entrepreneurs working from home. But I mean, everything about my life is always changing, but it's staying open to those possibilities.
And who's benefiting from the Mindfulness Council?
You know, members of our Mindfulness Council include researchers right now. So we've got, you know, PhDs in happiness, and, you know, we're talking to some folks right now at many of the mindfulness apps that perhaps you've heard of, or wellness institutions. We're partnering with various corporations, financial industry, for example, to bring mindfulness into the workplace as we reinvent the workplace going forward. And then, of course, all of the contributors that are reading our articles, our white papers, the people that are listening to the podcast every day. That was not a plan to do the show every day live. And I get usually about 20 people listening live every day, and then it goes out to hundreds of people. So I made a unstuck choice a few years ago. I said, I'm going to touch 1 million lives with mindfulness. I had no idea how I was going to do it. And now I can say with absolute confidence that each day we're checking off a little closer to that. And we've got a big project coming in May that's going to make us some big strides forward in expanding the mindfulness movement worldwide.
Very cool. The book, what's the title of the book again?
This is book 3. It's called Everyday Mindfulness: From Chaos to Calm in a Crazy World. And then the most recent one is actually called Everyday Mindfulness for the C-Suite Executive. And it's a 30-day book. This one is a year-long book. The other one is 30 days. So, and they're all on Amazon.
I believe the last time we met, you were picking out the cover for that book.
Was I?
Yeah.
For this one? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. A stuck moment. I had 6 or 8, 10 of them that I was looking at. Ultimately ended up going to a bookstore, standing on the shelf, asking the lady where the mindfulness books get shelved. And I stood there and stared at the shelf long enough until the vision came to me. And that's how the cover came to be.
Cool. So tell us, how can the everyday person who's just having a hard time coping right now, what would you tell them about starting a mindfulness practice? How would they get to that point?
Well, I think first of all, it's don't take it so seriously. I think people get in their head about, oh, I've got to be on a yoga mat for 20 minutes, or I've got to stop, or like it can be 2 minutes. And I'll make sure that you get the download as kind of, my gift to the show is I have something I call the mindful mini poster, and it's got 7 little practices, and you can do them in 2 minutes or less. If you're overwhelmed right now, just commit every morning. I'm going to get up, I'm going to breathe in and out, and I'm going to visualize my day, like make that little mini movie. And we don't get up and make the mini movie. This is going to be stressed and overwhelmed. And my 4-year-old's not going to do their schoolwork, and then I'm not going to get my work at it. Like visualize. What you visualize, you actualize. That's just one easy way to start that you can do, just 2 minutes in the day before you go to sleep. Just play back your day and be grateful for what happened. That's where I would start if I was overwhelmed. I know a lot of people right now, we can't add one more thing to our day, but that little practice of visualize, what you visualize, you actualize, do it over and over and over and over again. It's a practice, not a perfect. You'll see how you're going to get yourself unstuck and moving again.
I love the mini movie. It's an exercise I've actually done before. Is when you think about creating a movie, you have to have some conflict to have a good movie. Nobody wants to watch a movie about somebody whose life was always perfect. Same thing with people ask me, how do you become a motivational speaker? And I always say, step 1 is you have to have a messed up life, so you have something to talk about. So we all need to have those stories. But when you create that mini movie in your mind, like I can write out all the bad things that have happened or all the stuff that I've had to deal with. But I know that if I'm writing a mini movie, I'm already thinking about the happy ending. And so you get to create that happy ending in your life and then manifest it from there. It's not like you can sit and like, oh, my life's been horrible and here's how it ends. I just, I get flattened by a truck. No, it always ends with somehow some heroic venture, or, you get to create that happy ending for yourself.
And I think right now, it used to be you wrote 5-year business plans, or you wrote 2-year business plans, or like I'm working with my clients right now on one thing you can do in the next 48 hours, and maybe go get a picture of it. Obviously we've got tons and tons of online website photos. There's been a joke, I'm sure you've seen it going around. Who put this on your 2020 vision board? Well, I think candidly we all did, because we said 2020 was going to be the year of clear vision. Well, what do you have to have clear vision? You have to have an unclear life to march through to create clear vision. We kind of forgot that. Be careful what you wish for, you might get it. But my clients and we're looking at, 48 hours. What's one thing I can have in 48 hours? I told you the movie Monday thing. For us that morning, we set the idea that at the end of the night we were going to have a date night and we were going to watch a movie. That same week, Tuesday was Taco and Tequila Tuesday. Wednesday was Waikiki Wednesday. We grabbed our t-shirts and dressed in Hawaiian. Like right now, getting unstuck might not be, I'm going to completely renovate my life, but it's what can I do in the next 48 hours to bring a visualization to reality. And I think that's part of how my practice has grown to be so successful year over year, and how I've gotten through some of those tough moments and created some really fun things in my life too. Absolutely.
And you're keeping busy and keeping productive is extremely important. I remember being an athlete in college, and it was always like during season, my grades were better than off season, because in the off season, I always thought, well, I'll get to that later. I have plenty of time. And when I was busy, I had to schedule everything. And so one of my fears now is during this quarantine time, we don't know how long it's going to last. So we're all looking at, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And how many of us are going to regret when this is over that we didn't actually get to those things that we wanted to do? But, we saw those Netflix programs or spent a lot of time, so I appreciate the people who are staying active, who are conquering their list and getting things done now so that they can have clarity and vision. And even if it's like you said, what can you do in the next 48 hours? Because I look at it and go, what can I do during a quarantine? Well, I don't know. It might last 6 months, so I'll get to that eventually. But if you look at what can I do in the next 24 or 48 hours, you're making progress and you're moving towards, that moment you want to be in when this is all over.
At Leadership Solutions International, we have something we call the MIT, the most important thing. Because in the nature of my business, we've got a lot of moving parts at any given time. But every Monday morning, our first thing when we get to our guests is we say, what's the MIT for the week, the most important thing this week? And then we make sure we've built that time on our calendar to do that MIT. All the rest will come what may, and we'll do whatever. But just that mindfulness of, right now, one thing can be a huge practice as well. And that was one of the funny things we did when this pandemic started. Is I have a Post-it note here over my desk, and it says, the projects I have the opportunity to complete now. And I asked myself, how many of those times have we whispered to the world, God, if the world would only stop for 2 weeks, I would do X, Y, and Z. And I wrote all those things down. And we're just trying to check little things off our list one at a time and celebrate every one of them. I think that's the unstuck thing we don't often talk about. Is it's so easy to get in the human doingness of life, but there's also this really cool human beingness of life.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really cool. I've been working on the Unstuck and Happy documentary movie for a couple of years now. And my partner on it suddenly passed away in December. And he was doing most of the editing in that. And I used to go to his house and sit and watch him edit. And then eventually I was like, okay, let me do this for a while. I know what I want to do. And I'm glad that I did, because I learned how to actually do the editing. And so one of the things that I set a goal for during this quarantine time was to finish the movie. And I did the other day, finally finished it. So woohoo. I know, right? Still has to go to final editing, but yeah, it's just a huge accomplishment to say, okay, this is something that's been working on for a while. Haven't had the time to really dedicate to it. And now it's done. I would have hated to go through this whole time and then look back and go, I should have taken care of that during this time.
And I think there's a space right now. A lot of my clients, I'm sure maybe you're experiencing this too, are all about, I'm stuck at home. I have a whole resource guide. Again, I'm happy to share it if people would like it. Like, let's go see and do things outside of our homes, even from home. Museums and all kinds of fun places you can travel to that I wouldn't otherwise have had the time or the space to see. I kind of laughed. I have 2 monitors set up, and one of my setups right now I have set up for I think it's the Atlanta Aquarium. And it like I would never get to go there if I hadn't done. What's that thing you've always dreamed about doing? Use this time to innovate about how to do it in a different way. That's, in most cases, isn't going to cost you a lot of money. And you get to check that thing off your life list.
Yeah, I have a friend that used to host game nights on a regular basis, and she just started doing them again virtually. So everybody gets on Zoom and plays games. It's like, cool. You actually get to still enjoy life, just find a different way to do it. Pivot.
Yeah. And it's a special time for all of us to show our realness. And you may have a story within you that can inspire somebody else, and vice versa. The very, very, very early days of this, I had a client call, and I found out that she had been let go early in the process. And I was the first call that she'd made to tell me that. And just to be able to be a listening ear for that there's somebody that you need to call right now that you can reach out to, or you may receive a call. Like, how can we use just every little moment as an unstuck opportunity? Because that's the gift we give ourselves, to be there for somebody else and them to be there for you. So I think that would be something I'd invite your unstuck listeners to do. doesn't take a lot of time. Who's that person you've said, God, if I had time, I'd call my blank. Call them.
Absolutely. So how do we get more of you? How do we stay in touch? What do you have going on that people can be a part of?
Right now, leadership solutionsintl.com is sort of my main page, the ecosystem of my offerings. You can get everydaymindfulnessshow.com there, all of the free mindfulness resources, download the mindful mini poster. I'm doing a lot of little, short online TED Talks right now for companies and organizations. If this is something they're interested in, my email's there, just holly@leadershipsolutionsintl.com. I love to meet people where they are and support them in going where they want to go. So if you've got a question or an idea, just drop me an email, holly@leadershipsolutionsintl.com, and we will keep flowing into our new beginnings and becomings together.
Awesome. And what is that one final piece of advice you would give to people right now?
What you visualize, you actualize.
Very cool.
So visualize what you want to have happen, not what you don't want to have happen.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Holly Duckworth, everyone, check her out, and we will see you again next week. Thanks. Make sure you head over to unstuckandhappy.com, where you'll find the video version of all of our podcasts, as well as information about upcoming Unstuck Happiness conferences and moving beyond personal development retreats. So those are amazing. Make sure you join us again next week for another great Unstuck story. And in the meantime, keep living unstuck and happy.